You may have noticed this about yourself, even if you've never said it out loud. There's this quiet sense that you've been carrying something heavy for a very long time. Not a physical weight, but an emotional one. You feel responsible for people in ways that go deeper than obligation. You notice what others miss. You sense emotional shifts instantly. And when it comes to your mother or the maternal figure in your life, the connection feels layered, complex, and sometimes heavier than you can explain. By the end of this video, you'll understand why INTJ and INFJ empaths often carry this invisible emotional imprint, why it shaped the way you relate to love and responsibility, and the exact sentence you can use to begin separating your emotional truth from what was never yours to hold. Because there is a moment, a very early moment in life where this pattern quietly begins, and most people never realize it happened. When you were young, your nervous system was incredibly sensitive to emotional tone. Not just words, but pauses. Not just actions, but energy. You could tell when your mother was overwhelmed, even if she said nothing. You could sense when she was emotionally unavailable, even if she was physically present. And without anyone telling you to, your body adapted. You became easier, more self-contained, more aware. You learned on a nervous system level that your role was not just to exist, but to stabilize. Because when a child senses emotional instability in a parent, the child's system doesn't separate itself from that instability. It moves toward it. It tries to restore balance, not consciously, but biologically. And here's the part no one tells you. This adaptation can look like maturity. People may have called you wise for your age, independent, strong. But what they didn't see was the quiet cost. Your nervous system was learning that love meant attunement, and attunement meant self-silencing. Imagine this scene for a moment. You walk into a room, and before anyone speaks, you already know how she feels. Your body registers it instantly. Maybe her silence feels heavy. Maybe her tone feels sharp. Maybe her absence feels louder than her presence. And in that moment, you adjust. You don't ask for too much. You don't express everything you feel. You become emotionally strategic, not to manipulate, but to survive emotionally. Because your nervous system learned that connection depended on your ability to stay attuned to her emotional state. And here's where the imprint forms. When this happens repeatedly, the child begins to internalize emotional responsibility. You begin to feel on a deep level that it's your role to carry emotional weight so connection doesn't break. This becomes automatic, invisible, and it follows you into adulthood. This is why even now you might feel tension when someone you love is struggling. Your body reacts before your mind does. You start thinking about how to help them, how to stabilize them, how to prevent emotional distance. Not because they asked you to, but because your nervous system associates emotional harmony with safety. And this is especially true for INTJ and INFJ empaths because your natural wiring is deeply perceptive. You don't just hear words. You read patterns. You anticipate emotional consequences. You prepare yourself internally before anything even happens. This makes you incredibly insightful, but it also makes it easy to carry emotional burdens that were never meant to be yours. And here's the quiet truth most people never say out loud. The mother shadow isn't about blaming your mother. It's about recognizing the emotional weight your nervous system learned to hold in order to preserve connection. You may love her deeply. You may understand her pain. You may even feel protective of her. And still, there is a part of you that learned to suppress your own needs to maintain emotional stability. Both things can be true. This is what makes it so complex. Because the child version of you didn't have the option to separate. Your nervous system chose connection even at the cost of self-abandonment. And here's the part that can feel surprising. That pattern doesn't disappear just because you grow older. It continues quietly. It shows up when you feel responsible for fixing someone's emotional state. It shows up when you struggle to relax because someone else is distressed. It shows up when you feel emotionally drained without knowing exactly why. And the reason is simple, even if it doesn't feel simple. Your nervous system learned that carrying emotional weight was part of love. But listen closely, because this is where change begins. The moment you notice yourself preparing to carry someone else emotionally, there is a small pause, a subtle sensation in your body, maybe a tightening in your chest, maybe a sense of pressure, maybe a quiet urgency to respond. That sensation is not a command. It's a signal. It's your nervous system doing what it learned to do. And most people override it instantly. They move toward the other person and away from themselves. But there is another option. You can stay with yourself for just a moment longer. You can notice the impulse without acting on it immediately. And inside yourself, you can begin with something simple and honest. You can say, I care about them, but I am allowed to care about myself too. And here's the part no one tells you. That small moment of awareness is where your freedom begins. What happens next is not loud. It doesn't look dramatic from the outside. In fact, no one else may even notice it at first, but inside you something begins to reorganize. Because the moment you stop immediately abandoning yourself to carry someone else, your nervous system enters unfamiliar territory. At first, this can feel uncomfortable. You might feel guilt, you might feel tension, you might even feel like you're doing something wrong. Not because you are, but because your system is adjusting to a new definition of safety. For most of your life, safety meant staying emotionally available, staying responsible, staying attuned to others at all costs. Now, safety is beginning to include you. And here's the part that can feel confusing. Nothing dangerous is actually happening. The discomfort you feel is not a sign that you're hurting someone. It's a sign that you're no longer hurting yourself in the same automatic way. You may notice this in a simple moment. Someone you care about is upset, and you feel the familiar pull to step in immediately, to fix, to soothe, to carry. But this time you pause, you feel your feet on the ground. You feel your breath moving in and out of your body. And instead of abandoning yourself, you stay present with your own experience. This pause is powerful because it interrupts a pattern your nervous system has repeated for years. And in that pause, you begin to separate what belongs to you from what does not. You begin to realize that empathy does not require absorption. Care does not require self-erasure. Love does not require you to disappear. There is a sentence you can use in moments like this. And it may feel unfamiliar at first, but it creates space without breaking connection. You can say, I want to be here for you, and I also need to take care of myself right now. Notice how the sentence does not reject the other person. It includes you. For many INTJ and INFJ empaths, this is the missing piece. You were never taught that you were allowed to exist inside the relationship, not just serve it. And when you begin to speak this way, something important happens inside your nervous system. You stop experiencing connection as something that costs you your stability. There's also something deeper that begins to surface. You may start noticing how often you've been anticipating emotional needs before they were even expressed. How often you've been scanning, adjusting, preparing. This constant vigilance was never a flaw. It was your system trying to maintain harmony. But now you are teaching your system something new. You are teaching it that harmony does not depend on your self-abandonment. It depends on your presence. And presence includes your limits. This can bring unexpected emotions to the surface, sadness, because you realize how long you've carried this weight. Relief, because you finally see that you don't have to anymore. And sometimes anger, not toward anyone specifically, but toward the pattern itself. All of this is part of reclaiming yourself. There is also another sentence that can help you protect your energy while staying grounded in truth. You can say, I'm not able to hold this right now. This is not rejection. This is honesty. And honesty is what allows real connection to exist. Because connection that requires you to disappear was never sustainable. When you begin to honor your limits, you may notice that some people respond with respect. Others may resist, not because you are wrong, because they're used to the version of you who carried everything silently. This is where your clarity becomes essential. You are not responsible for managing their reaction. You are responsible for staying connected to yourself. There's also a simple reset you can practice anytime you feel yourself slipping back into the old pattern. Gently inhale through your nose and let your exhale be slightly longer than your inhale. As you breathe out, feel the weight of your body supported by whatever is beneath you. Let your shoulders soften. And inside yourself, say quietly, I am allowed to stay with myself. This small act tells your nervous system that you are no longer abandoning yourself in moments of emotional demand. It may seem simple, but repetition creates change. Each time you do this, you strengthen a new internal foundation. You can also ask yourself a few honest questions when you notice the old pattern returning. You might ask, am I helping from care or from fear? You might ask, so what am I feeling in my body right now? You might ask, what do I actually need in this moment? And finally, you might ask, what would it look like to include myself here? These questions bring your awareness back to the present where you have choice, because this is the truth most people were never taught. You are allowed to care deeply without carrying everything. You are allowed to love without losing yourself. And there is one more sentence that can change everything when you begin to live from this new place. You can say, I care about you, but I cannot carry this for you. Not with anger, not with blame, but with calm certainty. This sentence does not break connection. It restores balance. Because the version of you who exists now understands something the younger version of you could not. You understand that your worth is not measured by how much you carry. Your worth is inherent. It does not need to be earned through emotional sacrifice. As you continue practicing this, something remarkable happens. The heaviness begins to lift. Not all at once, but gradually, you begin to feel more present in your own life, more grounded in your own body, more at peace with your own needs. And the mother shadow, the emotional imprint you carried for so long, begins to loosen its grip. Not because you forced it, but because you finally stopped reinforcing it. You are no longer the child trying to stabilize the emotional world. You are the adult who can stand fully inside herself. And in that place, there is relief. There is clarity. There is strength that does not come from endurance, but from alignment. You no longer need to carry what was never yours. You only need to carry yourself. And in the next video, we'll talk about how empaths can release guilt when they finally stop overgiving and choose themselves.